Honorable Professor Eng Chye, the Rector of University of Singapore, with all the delegates, and Honorable Professor Universitas Padjadjaran, our second Rector of Universitas Padjadjaran, Honorable UEN, I always call her UEN, Director of Institute of Art, Culture of Indonesia in Bandung, and also the representative of our neighboring university come from Universitas Siliwangi from Tasikmalaya, and I heard also our colleagues from Indonesian Education University and other campus around Bandung. All the vice rectors, deans in Universitas Padjadjaran, and also the vice deans, dear colleagues, all the faculty members, and dear students. I think it's a great honor and pleasure for Universitas Padjadjaran to have a visit from Professor Tan and all delegates. We know very well the reputation of University of Singapore as the #1 university in Asia. That's why as I heard that we have an opportunity to get a visit from the Rector of University of Singapore, from Ronnie, our faculty member who met Professor Tan during the meeting in Shenzhen. I wrote directly a letter to him, and we got a very positive response that he will come to Bandung today. We know very well that facing a very complex challenge in the future, the university cannot work alone. Not only in our country, but in the whole world. And we understand the advancements in science technology is not dominated again by university nowadays, because other sectors has also developed many innovations. Developing network and collaboration is very important strategy for us today. And especially for us in West Java, Unpad was developed in West Java with a big purpose that we can contribute significantly to the development of the society here. As the highest populated province in Indonesia, we are very sure if we can do something significantly for our province, it will also contribute significantly for our nations Indonesia and also for the world, because the number of population in Indonesia is also very big. Indonesia now is counted as part of the G20, and in the future is also predicted if we can maintain our economic development, we can also contribute as a prominent economic country in the world. We understand very well that for a long time we tried to develop collaboration with some big universities in the world. Today, this morning, as we talk in the rector's room, I told Professor Tan, there's a word here in Indonesia that sometimes we can see a bacteria a long way, but sometimes we forget or we cannot see big elephant in front of us. There's a big partner, very prominent and very potential partner from Indonesia and nearby of us in Singapore. It's not only partner, but they are part of our brotherhood in terms of ASEAN countries. That's why as we get this opportunity, we hope this is also a big starting point for us to develop collaboration with the University of Singapore. And with very warm welcome and also warm talk today or this morning, we are very optimistic. Your coming here will bring new hope for the future of our university and also for West Java and also for Indonesia. We always talk that in the last years, we tried to develop our understanding or our commitment from West Java for Indonesia to the world. So, by your support and our collaboration, I'm sure that we can fulfill or really have that kind of hope, not only hope, but we can realize that. Today we have a lot of talk about the possibility of collaboration. Students and also faculty member is the very big potential of university. That's why we would like to start our collaboration in this way. How we can start by giving opportunity for the students, the Unpad students to come there, learn something, or NUS students come here, or we can meet somewhere here in West Java, not only for the purpose of our goodness, but also for the goodness of the society. Today, as I invite our colleagues from other universities, would like also to give opportunity that not only Unpad that will work together with NUS, but other neighboring university in West Java can also take part in this kind of collaboration. And I'm very sure with your vision of NUS as you talked with us this morning, which will be also delivered and shared to you, I'm very optimistic this will be one very good starting point. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, today Professor Tan will share with us about the topics is how NUS strategy to become the #1 university in Asia. But he will focus on some very innovative strategy that can be shared with us. May I first introduce him to you all. Professor Tan became the president of the National University of Singapore just starting the 1st January of 2018. You're right? Yeah? Okay. He's the 5th president and the 23rd leader to head Singapore's oldest highest education institutions. Professor Tan, who attended Raffles Institution in 1974 to 1979, obtained his bachelor in mathematics, first class honors in 1985 at NUS and PhD in 1989 at Yale University. He joined NUS as faculty member in the Department of Mathematics in 1985 as senior tutor and has held visiting positions at various universities overseas, such as at the Rutgers University. We have a collaboration with Rutgers. Last year I was there, so I know Rutgers University very well. He was also has a positions in University of Washington at Seattle, University of California at Berkeley, and University of Maryland in USA. And he also has some positions at the University of Tokyo, Kyoto in Japan, as well as at the Hong Kong Institute of Science and Technology. Professor Tan's research interests are in the representations theory of Lie group and Lie algebras, and invariant theory and algebraic combinatorics. He has been invited to speak in numerous top conferences overseas and has published more than 20 articles in top internationally referred journals and conference proceedings. He has co-authored 3 books on mathematics, including a well-known graduate text on non-abelian harmonic analysis. For mathematician, perhaps is very familiar with this. Professor Tan is a passionate and award-winning educator. He was a pioneer architect of the current academic system in NUS and has headed many initiatives such as the Special Program in Science, University Source Program, University Town Residential College Program, Grade 3 Year, Technically Enhanced Educations, and many others. He was recognized with the University Teaching Award for Innovative Teaching in 1998 and was president of the Singapore Mathematical Society from 2001 until 2005, as well as the Southeast Asian Mathematical Society in 2004 until 2005. Professor Tan sits on the International Advisory Council of the Southern University of Science and Technology in China. He is on the boards of the Defense Science and Technology Agency, Minister of Defense, Business Center of Social Enterprise, and NUS High School of Mathematics and Science. He's also a past board member of Defense Science Organization Laboratories, National Institute of Education, and the Infocom Development Agency. Prof. Tan received the Public Administration Medal, Gold Medal, at Singapore National Day Awards in 2014 for his outstanding contribution to education. Dear colleagues, let's now hear what he will share with us. I'm very confident that this will be very inspiring for us. Prof. Tan, the floor is yours, please.
Good morning, Professor Rector Tri Hangono and esteemed colleagues. It's really my honor to be here this morning. Before I start, can I check whether you can project my presentation? So Professor Tri requested that I share with you some of NUS strategies in positioning NUS as the top university in Asia. I thought that it would be quite presumptuous of me to do that. I'll just like to share what we do, right, and what we consider to be important. And one aspect that we have been doing for many years is to position NUS as a global university. And what does a global university mean? Okay. Seems that I can't control it from here. Should I point it there? Yeah. Okay, I'll try to point it there. So there are a few global trends that are affecting universities today. And one aspect is on globalization, how the world is flagged, and how we should connect ourselves and collaborate with universities. Now there is also other sort of trends that is happening. One is the massification of higher education. Basically, more and more students are going to universities. Then the rankings come into the picture. The rankings provided severe competition amongst universities. And universities are also competing to hire the best staff and also to recruit the best students. What is also happening outside is something which all universities, including NUS, would have to try to address. So all of us have heard about the fourth industrial revolution and how abrupt changes in the world outside will require universities to respond in a very different way. The truth is, what we are doing now is not sufficient, right, to prepare our graduates for the rapidly changing world. Right? And we have to do something very different. And one of the key drivers of the change is technology. Right? And it is already very visible in many parts of the world, including Indonesia. Indonesia, I read that more than 100 million people, right, have access to internet. Right? And they are very well connected to the internet. And that connection forces a different change, a huge change to society. Now I can spend days talking about each and every one of this topic. Today I'm just going to talk about globalization. Next slide. I don't think I can control this. So NUS, we are positioned as a leading global university, right, centered in Asia and hoping to influence the future. And the key thing here, if you look at our vision, is the word global. What does global mean? Next. I will venture, next slide please. I'll venture that there are a few key components of being a global university. Right? And one important component is that you want to be there. Right? And that has to be articulated in the vision. You want to be a global university. And by a global university, it would also mean that you recruit not just your faculty members, it's your students and also your staff internationally. Right? So you have actually an open and global recruitment. So I'll talk a little bit about why we can actually do and improve sort of so fast over the last 10 to 15 years. Part of the reason is because we are able to recruit the very best people. And another one important aspect which we pay a lot of attention to. NUS is about the same size as Unpad. We have about 38,000 students, of which 28,000 are undergraduate students. Right? So every year I take in 7,000 students. And it is a big challenge to make sure that these 7,000 students are well trained and are able to compete, not just in Singapore, but in the world. Singapore is so small, we only have like 5.5 million people, right? So we don't compete within ourselves. We have to position and prepare our students that you are there to compete with the world. Right? And I think that will have to change the context and the premise a lot. If you drill that to our students, that you are competing with the world, not just competing just amongst yourself. All right? And in order to survive, you have to do better, all right, than many others. Next slide. So let me quickly talk about, for a university is a talent organization. University is about talented faculty who can do very good, impactful research that will sort of impact society. It is also about talented faculty who can train the next generation of graduates for the country. It's also about graduates who can, either through social or economic, political spheres, impact and influence the society in the future. So it is about talents, right? And training talents, especially you need very strong professors. So one key thing that we do is that we recruit our professors worldwide. We recruit the best. We do not give preferential treatment to even Singaporeans. Although it is important that we must have a group of Singaporeans who are equally strong compared with the very best in the world. Right? Again, that's a mindset thing. We have a lot of schemes to identify our top Singaporean students, and we would send them to the best universities in the world. You may ask, why didn't we keep them in NUS? Important thing is exposure. We want our students to be exposed. Because they are already exposed to NUS in their undergraduate, they should be exposed to other top universities for their graduate. So that, in a way, helps to prevent inbreeding in the university. Right? Because if you're always in the system for too long, then you don't see what's happening outside. It's very hard for you to change. Right? So we expose our students. We even insist that after our students have finished their PhD in a top university, they must go to another top institution for their postdoctoral attachment. And it must be a different place from the place where they do their PhD. For the simple reason, if you want our students to be researchers, they must be able to think independently. They cannot go back to their PhD supervisor and say that, Prof, can you give me a problem? So we want our own, our PhDs to be able to think up of important problems, find the important problems themselves. That is the independence in research. So it is hard training, but we have to subject our Singapore students and PhDs to go through that training. Right? And even after they finish their postdoc, they are not automatically guaranteed a position in the university. They will compete with the others, right, to come into the university as an assistant professor. So you'll find that there are many layers that we put in place. But the central idea is that we want to let our people know that we are getting them to compete globally. Right? And that's how we can assure quality. Next slide. So previous to this. Now for young faculty members, we put a lot of attention. Our focus is on young faculty members because they are the future of the organization. And we want them to first build a strong foundation in their research. Right? We will provide them with a startup grant. We will mentor them. We will get some of the professors in the department to guide them how to teach, to guide them on how to do research, how to do important research, where to publish, and so on and so forth. So a lot of guidance is required for the young faculty member, right? And if you guide them well, right, you would get the sort of returns that you see. And one thing that we try to avoid doing is to try not to overload our young assistant professors or your lecturers. Because you want to give them more time to do research, you don't want to give them too much administration. So our administration is mostly done by tenured faculty. Right? Tenured faculty would have to take on administration, but junior faculty, they should focus on teaching and research. So that mentorship, that development is very important for young staff. So we put a lot of attention on young staff. Next slide. And we have a very rigorous promotion and tenure. So young staff, when they come in, they have 6 years to get tenure. If they don't get tenure, they leave the university. So ours is up or out system. If you don't go up, you are out. 6 years. All right, and you have to do that within 6 years. And we have actually a department committee to look at your performance. We also have the head of department to look at the performance. We have the faculty committee to look at the performance, and then the dean of the faculty, and then we have a university committee to look. So you find that the number of people who have looked at a person's promotion is about 28 people. 28 almost full professors would have looked at a particular case of promotion. Right? Finally, of course, the provost and the president. So tenure is a very important thing. And we actually set very high standards for tenure. So if you go and talk to our junior faculty, you ask them what worries them most, they will say tenure. Right? They will tell you that they are not sure whether within that 6 years they can be tenured. Right? But of course, along the way, we always give them guidance, how good they are progressing towards the tenure. Right? And the quality control is important because the moment you tenure a person, that person has a job until age 65. Right? We are quite unlike the US. US, when you are tenured, you are actually employed for life. You don't have to retire. Even if you are 80 years old in the US, you can just stay in the university as a professor. Right? But we think that that is not a good system, in the sense that the university actually depends on young people. Right? Not that old people are no use, but I think we have to make way for young people. I'm old too. Right? But I have to make sure that I put in platforms to make sure that the young ones are better trained than us, who can do better than us, all right, and take over us. So that is what I see as an important part of my job. So one of the key things for the provost, the president, the deans, the heads of department is how to pick junior faculty, how to groom them, and how to develop them so that they can succeed. That is the most important though. Next. Now, there are many challenges, especially if your system is growing, right? And one aspect is evaluation. Do we count papers? And I think that universities, they would go through different phases. You have to start by counting papers. But after a while, you start by counting good papers. And after a while, good papers don't matter. You count by what's the impact of your research. So your university would have to mature along the way if you implement a system like this, right? And NUS, in a way that I think we have implemented the promotion system about 17 years ago. So it's close to 20 years. So we have actually matured quite a bit. And now we get better at being able to judge. So now we don't count papers, we really measure impact. What's the impact of your research to the community? And there are many measures for impact. And that is a long story to go into that. But that gives you a sense of the change. Right? So my first point is about faculty. Next slide, please. My next point is about global education. And global education means that I would have to expose my students to the world outside. I've earlier mentioned that Singapore is very small. We only have 5.5 million people. If you go to Singapore airport, every flight out of Singapore is an international flight. Every flight is an international flight. All right, and that makes a difference. All right, that makes a difference that, Singapore must connect to the world. All right, Singapore must connect to the world. And we have been telling our students, you must go see the world. Right, so this is what we do. Next slide, please. We have two main ideas. One is to bring the world to NUS. Right. By bringing the world to NUS, what I meant is that I have to have a strong foreign component within our campus. So our campus, amongst our faculty members, 50% are foreigners. So our professors, 50% are foreigners. Right? Because of the strict, you choose the very best. At the undergraduate level, about 15% are foreigners. At the graduate level, about 70% are foreigners. If you ask why the big difference, The Singapore job market is pretty good. So our PhD scholarships are not attractive enough to keep our good students to do their PhDs, because they can get much higher pay once they go out to the market. So that is one challenge for Singapore, right? So we have actually quite a lot of diversity. The other thing is that we also have many joint programs with top universities. 15 years ago, we collaborated with Johns Hopkins Peabody Institute to set up a conservatory in Singapore. About 10 years ago, we collaborated with Duke University to set up a second medical school in NUS. So now we have 2 medical schools in NUS. Universities presidents always joke that you can look at a president, look at his white hair, and then you'll know how many medical schools he or she has. The more medical schools you have, the more white hair you have. Right. So we have 2 medical schools. One is an undergraduate medical school following the UK system. The other one is an American graduate medical school following the US system. So we partner with Duke University to form our second medical school. And recently we partnered with Yale University to form a liberal arts college. So that partnership again brings in a lot of the foreign component and foreign orientation into our campus. One important thing that I want to state here is that when we take an idea over to Singapore, we don't just copy it. In fact, we adapt it. Because our cultures are very different. US culture, UK culture, European culture is different from Singaporean culture. Right? And you cannot just copy something from US and hope that it will work in Singapore. So there's a lot of local adaptation. But we are pretty good at making sure that things work. Alright, and that local adaptation is less of an issue. Now we also partner with a lot of universities to have exchange students. And I'm very happy that this morning I signed our agreement with the rector, Try, that we will have exchange between UPad and NUS. So I hope to send students to your university, and likewise I would like to invite you to send your students to NUS for a semester. Alright? And we also want to extend this to possibly where our students can come here and be attached to one of your partner companies, and your students can come to Singapore and attach to one of our partner companies. Right? So our students actually get a good feeling, right, of what's happening. So every year we would have more than 2,000 foreign students in our campus. In fact, most of these students that come here are from US and Europe. Right? So we have lots more Western country students for the exchange. Can I have the next slide? Now we also want to make sure that we bring the world to our students, which means that we encourage our students to go out and adventure. Right? So we have about more than 1/3 of our students will go for a 1-semester exchange, usually 5-6 months, with 300 partners around the world. And we also have students going for short-term exchange, a few thousand students. So every year we have like 4,000 or 5,000 students who are overseas doing some form of exchange and exposure, which we find that that's very good. And we find that it is very useful to make sure that when our students are overseas, they don't gather together too much. When they go overseas, they are supposed to try and appreciate the society over the other side. If they always form their own strong group, then they will never learn about the other society. Our hope is for them to understand those society, rather than to keep their own small groups within a foreign country. So that's something again about mindset, that when you are in a foreign country, you must learn to appreciate and understand their culture. Very important. Now we also have many partnerships with universities, joint, concurrent degrees, so our students can go to US, say University of North Carolina, to have a joint degree. Spend 3 semesters in North Carolina and 5 semesters in NUS and get a joint degree from both universities. Likewise, we have Australian National University having joint degrees. Right? So joint concurrent degrees are something that we do quite a bit. And currently we have about 85 joint degrees with about 40 universities around the world. And we also have 9 overseas colleges, which I'll talk a little bit about. Next slide, please. So, when I talk about the globalization, two important sort of approach is, one, to bring the world to NUS campus, and second, to expose our students to the world. Now, future-ready graduates, very, very important, because the world changes very quickly outside. Our graduates are expected to work 45 to 50 years. Now our retirement age, although it's 62, but you can work until 67. In no time, I think we may have to work until age 75. Right? You start with 70, then 75. From the time a graduate leaves the university at about age 22 to 24, he or she would have 45 to 50 years of career building. All right? But there's so many changes outside. How can we be so sure that that 4 years that they learned in the university will be enough? In fact, it's not enough. Right? So how can we prepare our graduates to be future ready? Next. We put a lot of attention. This slide is a bit busy. We put a lot of attention on soft skills. Can I have the next slide? So soft skills are skill sets which are usually not taught in class. And it is also difficult to teach them. Alright, what do I mean by soft skills? Now, I often say that universities should create opportunities for students to fail. Listen again. Universities should create opportunities for students to fail. Failure is a very important lesson. We always worry about success. Especially in the Singapore society, you always look at success. You don't look at failure. But you learn most from failure. When you are out in the real world, if you fail, the society is not going to take pity on you. But in a university, if you fail, because we are a nurturing institution, we have to give the students a second chance. Now, that ability to fail and to be able to stand up and fight again, that is resilience. That one is very hard to teach. That one you cannot teach in the classroom. But that one you have to expose your students. How can you have programs that give students a sense of failure? In fact, you build your success on many failures. And you learn from there. So this is a concept called to fail forward. To fail forward. And soft skills are very important. How do we cultivate soft skills? So what we can do is to sensitize students. But we have to put them through experience. Right? And that brings me to one of our programs. Next. We think that experiential programs will be more important in how we can prepare our students for the 4th Industrial Revolution. So experiential learning is key. And we start experiential learning by making sure that all our courses have compulsory internships. I know this is done already in many universities in Indonesia. So where students will spend six months with an industry. And the longer the better. So recently we have a program that in a way has 18 months of internship within a 4-year period, right, with one company. And I do that for 3 courses: data science and analytics, business analytics, cybersecurity. And if you ask me why, the reason is that in these fields, research and application, the time frame is very short, right? And the students have to be exposed to real-life problems in the industry, but they may not have the tools or methodologies or the knowledge to solve them. So what they do is that they bring the problem back to the professors, and the professors will help them solve. But also important that through solving this, the professors will know what are the problems outside. So the student becomes now a very important conduit between industry and university. Universities, I think, have to work very closely with the industry, with the right type of industry, right? And our professors, you know, is a big challenge. It's the same challenge in NUS too. How to get my professors to understand the industry better, to know what are the real problems in the industry, right? So we use these students as a conduit to get our professors to be knowledgeable of the real problems outside. Next slide, please. And that brings me to one program which we have done for more than 17 years, which has been reasonably successful. All right, and that is on entrepreneurship. So we want to encourage our students to be entrepreneurs, right? To start their own companies. And how do we go about doing that? So that's why we started, next slide please, with some programs. But first, NUS Enterprise, what is it? In NUS, we have 4 key areas. We have the academic, which is basically the undergraduate and the graduate aspects of NUS. We have the research cluster. We also have an administration cluster. And we have also an enterprise cluster. And the one who is leading the enterprise cluster is our powerful lady here, Dr. Lily Chan. All right, she has been with enterprise for more than 10 years, and she has now created a very vibrant ecosystem within NUS and actually extended out to Singapore. Now, the enterprise actually do a few things. One, provide a pipeline of talents. Provide a pipeline of talents. Second, it provides and builds the environment. And third, it connects with the industry and the bigger ecosystem. And in our ecosystem is actually the global ecosystem. Next slide, please. So, since 2002, we have 9 overseas colleges. These are the 9. 3 are in North America. One is in, the very first one that we set up was in Silicon Valley, right? And the most recent one is in Toronto. This July, we'll be sending students to Toronto. Now, what do these students do if they come under this program? They are attached for 1 full year in a startup company. In a startup company, we choose the company, we attach them to the startup company. That's what they do in the day. And they can do many, many roles. They can be the development manager, they can be the research and development, part of the research and development team, they can do marketing, and so on and so forth. So they get actually a full stream of things. So I recently spoke to a student who went to NOC, and he describes this to me. He said that, Prof, in the first 6 months, the company grew. In the last 6 months, boom, the company collapsed and disappeared. This is the lesson of failure. Right? Imagine if you are working in a company, within 1 year you lose your job. You got to find another job. But now I'm attaching my student there. They don't lose their job. They were there for 1 year, but they understand how the company has done well and how the company has collapsed. That's a sort of an experience of failure, which is very important. So they know, and they have to analyze what did they do that make this company fail, so that I won't learn to make the mistake again. So entrepreneurship, internship allows you this sort of experience. Right? Next slide. So we started with this sort of programs, and then we built in more supporting mechanisms. Block 71 is a concept. It's a concept where we pull in all the enterprising people and their ideas together. We provide the supporting structure. So we will teach them how to refine their ideas, how to position their ideas. We bring in the investors to look at their ideas, to critique and criticize their ideas, and many, many other things. So we provide the environment to help them grow. Right? To help them grow. So Block 71 is that concept. So just recently, last year, in collaboration with the Salim Group, we set up an incubator in Jakarta, where we have about half of the companies in the incubator are from Indonesia, half from Singapore. And that interaction is very powerful. Right? So our hope is that we want to be able to bring many of these entrepreneurial talents together, and especially Southeast Asia entrepreneurial talents. Let them come out with own ideas for the market in Southeast Asia, and let them run the company. So for instance, when I was in Jogja, I visited one company that whose co-founders, right, they are Singaporeans and Indonesians as co-founders. And the company has been doing very well in Jogja. It employs about 100 software engineers in Jogja, right? And all local software engineers, right? But the company is run by a group of Singaporeans and a group of Indonesians, right? So there's a lot, and of course the company has been incubated by Lily's NUS Enterprise. Right? So we think that there's a very powerful collaboration, between countries in Southeast Asia in order to do that. Next. Now on campus, we have over the years been able to develop it. So now, if you see, there are two streams of companies. One stream of company comes from the professors and their research. So I'm not talking about that today. I'm talking about the students' companies and their ideas and their spin-off. We have more than 300 companies. All right, more than 300. Of course, some died. Existing is about 250. But over the last 10 years, more than 300 companies have been formed. 250 are still surviving. Next slide. And in the last 5 years, a few companies have been sold. So for instance, Zopin was acquired by California's Zendesk for about $30 million US. And it's formed by 5 graduates of NUS. Interestingly, one of them came from the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. You may wonder, why is Arts and Social Sciences involved? In fact, they are very important. Right? A lot of these sort of new businesses needs a diversity of strengths. you need not just engineers and scientists, you actually need humanities and social sciences. And the students, when they form a company, they know how to pick their partners. They know how to make sure that they have someone in business who can help with the marketing, someone who is in arts and social sciences who knows the design aspect of the product. And then someone in the engineering and sciences who can actually do the hard work of doing the programming or whatever, right, or the prototyping. So, and now we have a very good ecosystem where these students who have, or these graduates who have spin off one company. So for instance, the company that I mentioned in Jogja, it was actually the second company that our students have spun off. The first company they sold. Then they set up a second company, right? And then they decided that they should come to Indonesia to work with and collaborate with Indonesians, right? And you know, they get more experience as they go along. And we now have actually a very vibrant system where all these former graduates are coming in to add a lot of vibrancy and interaction within the whole Singapore ecosystem. Next. So, in conclusion, if you look at our positioning as a global university, right, a lot of our programs are overseas, but a lot of the benefits are captured right within our campus. Being a global university allows NUS to partner many universities. It also actually allows us to really stand out, right, in our region. And it also contributes, right, to Singapore. And I'm sure a lot of the top universities can also do that, right? And what we hope to share is just basically our, next slide please. I didn't have time to go through all 7 points. I've just articulated the vision, the recruiting worldwide, and innovating education. But one of the key principles that we have used, next slide please, is this. Competition is there. It has always been our driver. But collaboration is really our strategy. And it is here that I think I look forward to having the University of Padjadjaran as one of our valued partners, and hope we can do much more in time to come. So with this, I'd like to thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. The drums are commented. Please kindly stay on the stage and also take your seats. We also invite Mr. Trihangodanga.
First of all, I would like to thank very much for your lecture on the news. I am a lecturer in entrepreneurship and innovation. So I would like to know more about the Department of Entrepreneurships in news, whether it is at the Faculty of Business or also it is in other faculty. So I would like to know the general ideas. What kind of courses do you give if you know about entrepreneurships department? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. In fact, the two persons sitting on your left and right, they are the experts. They are not a department or a faculty, right? One thing that we try to avoid in NUS is to set up too many structures. Two presidents before me, he tried very hard to break down the boundaries of departments. Because departments make people really come together and just think about their department and not about the university. But the university has so much talent, it is very important for people to work outside their department and collaborate. So we were trying for a long time to break the barriers of departments and faculties. So we try as much as possible not to form new departments and new faculties. So enterprise is just a cluster, right? And it has two important units. One is the NUS Overseas College Program. The director is on your left. And he also is a business school professor. He does his teaching in the NUS Enterprise Cluster, right? And he also oversees the Entrepreneurship Center. So Prof. Ong can probably share with you later what are some of the courses that our students do, all right? Because we take some time to prepare our students even before they go for their 1 year internship. Their internship is 1 full year. We prepare them, and at the same time, they do courses also at our partner university. So like in Silicon Valley, they do courses at Stanford. In New York City, they do courses at NYU, New York University. In China, in Beijing, they do courses at Tsinghua University. And they have to do it in Mandarin. Right? So we get a local partner to be able to provide some entrepreneurship courses for the student while they work. So it's quite an elaborate thing.
So we can plan a cooperation between Padjadjaran University and NUS on entrepreneurship. So also we would like to send our students to study there, to have just about your entrepreneurship development. And I hope you can send also your student on entrepreneurship to Padjadjaran University. And I think it is, we can also plan to have a seminar, joint seminar between the NUS and Padjadjaran University on entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much. I think we'll be happy to explore all this.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's very interesting and very inspiring for me, especially. But I'm just wondering what you said in your presentation about how to help the junior staff in faculty members to enhancing the capabilities of the publication, teaching, and so on. So my question is, how to strategy to help our staff, our junior staff, to produce the publication, the quality publication, to produce the good students. Thanks.
So different departments are very different, right? And one question that my junior faculty members would often ask us is, what does it take for them to be tenured? What are your requirements? Is there a set of boxes that I have to tick, then I can be tenured? So I have actually, over the last 3 years, gone through a benchmarking exercise. If you go to our department website, most departments will have their benchmarking report. Right? The benchmarking report basically says this, that I ask the department, in fact, whenever I appoint a head of department, I ask 3 questions. Right? Where is your department now? Right? Where in terms of what is the placing in the world? Right? 2, where do you intend to go? Where do you intend to be 5 years, 10 years down the road? Say for instance, I'm top 50 in the world now, and I hope to be top 30 in 10 years. Then the third question is, how do you do it? Right? What sort of resources do you need from the university in order for you to do that? So the benchmarking report would calibrate the expectations for tenure. Right? So say a department of history will say that we are amongst the top 50 in the world. Right? And here are the top 40 to 50 set of departments in the world And we look at each of these departments and we say how good are their tenured associate professors, right, in terms of publications and so on and so forth. And then we use that as a benchmark. So if you look at the benchmarking report, then you'll find that the young people are guided. You see that because these are our role models. We are around 40 to 50 now. These are the universities that are around 40 to 50. This is how they publish. You should be something like that, right? And that usually is a good guide. Then our senior professors who have helped to produce those documents would reinforce, you know, the sort of advice given in these reports to the young faculty members. And one important aspect is that most young faculty members are not experienced in, say, preparing their papers. So the professors can help by reading and helping them adjust and sort of amend the paper so that it is suitable for publication. Right? But always important that we tell our young professors, aim high. You must aim high, right? You have to continue to aim high. One thing that we try to avoid is that don't just publish for the sake of publishing. If you publish for the sake of publishing, it's actually not doing the university good. You should only publish good quality paper.
Thank you. My name is Ahmad Bohari from Universitas of Education. Thank you, Professor Tri, on my sincere apology from my rector who can make it here and send me the certificate. Professor Tan is very inspiring. So one of the key aspects of NUS become the world-class university is strong faculty. So you hire faculty from all over the world and come to NUS. And I understand that the strategy also relates to, of course, sufficient funding, because we have to be able to attract them to come to our university. With the case with my university, for example, when we have with limited financial support, how can we negotiate? How can we attract world-class professors to come to university within our limited budget? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. We were actually blessed because we have a government who understands the importance of education and invests a lot in education. But we should not take that for granted, because a lot of these things can change overnight, especially with different governments and different thinking, right? In the past, when we have less resources, right, and which I think would apply to many universities in developing countries, one thing is that you have actually a large catchment, right? You should actually groom your own, but send them overseas. Send them overseas. Earlier on I said that we don't train them in NUS. We send them overseas. We send them overseas so that they get a different exposure. So you got them at their undergraduate level, you know that they are good, you send them overseas for training. And then make sure that they do a postdoc. And then when they come back, right, you continue to put attention on them and groom them. Right? That would be a very powerful catchment from you. And it works for NUS. Right? It works for NUS. And in fact, a lot of us, we have gone overseas, we got scholarships from universities overseas. All right? So it's not the university sponsoring, but scholarships. So when I tell my students, you are good, and I want you to do a PhD not in NUS, but I want you to do a PhD in a top university. But I'm not going to sponsor you. You go and get a scholarship. Because if you are good enough, you can get a scholarship. Alright, if you are good enough, you get a scholarship. But of course, I tie it back in a different way, in the sense that you go and get a scholarship. Alright, if you finish your PhD, I have a sum of money for you when you come back. So it's sort of, you have to tweak the incentives. But just coming back that you have your own group of talented students, groom them. But make sure that they have that diversity of training. Right? That way you can grow.
Thank you, Presiden. Okay, because you are not original from Unpad, last chance for you, please.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much for the last chance. It's great for me to be here and to be the student because I'm from the Faculty of Communication Science in Unpad. And I'm happy Unpad also provides for me the significant opportunity because the experience that I had here in Indonesia is totally different from my country as I'm a student from Sudan. I came here as a student to know more deeply about the NUS University in Singapore because it is one of the top universities in the world and it's a nice opportunity to hear from you, Professor. Thank you being here in Indonesia. The first question is I'm gonna ask directly about the scholarship and the quality of scholarship that the university provides for international students, and especially the international students from the developing countries. Because for what I thought from your slide that the 70% from your international students they are from Europe and UK, especially, and USA. So, what's your plans and strategy to give opportunities to the students from developing countries, such as from the Arabian continent and African continent, and a country like my country as Sudan, we're still developing. Because if we got chance in this university, we can have a new experience, so we can give a chance and we can serve our community and we can help them to grow and to develop fastly. And the second question is, as we know that every company it has obligators to implement the TSR, corporate social responsibility. So, what kind of projects that you provide to the Singaporean community to help them, to give them some chances and how to reduce the poverty and the crisis around you through the TSR. Thank you so much, and thank you all the audience here.
Well, thank you very much. I like your question. In response to your first question, we have usually about 700 PhD scholarships available, and we pay a lot of attention on diversity. Right? Although I would say that Africa has never been a continent that we are focusing on. We have actually, in the last 10 years or so, tried to focus places from like the non-traditional countries. So we wanted more PhD students, for instance, from Southeast Asia. Right? We wanted more PhD students from Eastern Europe. Right? I think we will be happy to explore, but I think part of our reason is that we find it hard to connect, right, with Africa, although we are actually quite easily sort of connectable with the other developing countries. I just have to emphasize that the diversity is a very important part. Right? If you have too many students all coming from one locality, that is also not healthy. Now, the second point on corporate social responsibility, I fully agree. And earlier on, Rector Chye has mentioned that one important mission of a university is also not just about supporting the businesses, but also trying to bridge the gap between the have and the have-nots, right? And in entrepreneurship, one important component, right, is the social enterprise. Right? By social enterprise, it's basically using our own technical and academic knowledge to impact on society. All right? Probably the less fortunate part of the society. So we also focus quite a bit about doing that. To give you an example, one of the companies that was incubated by Enterprise is Water Road. And what they do is that they are engineers. They have a way of water filtration, right? And that's a technology suggested by our Professor Eng Chye to his group of students. He basically says that there are many developing countries, they don't have a good source of clean water, right? And a lot of water, like from the wells, from the rivers, from the streams, may be polluted. It can have a lot of viruses, bacteria. But can we have a very cheap engineering device that can sort of filter the water from the wells, from the streams, all right? That takes away maybe 99% of the key pollutants, viruses and bacteria. And basically gives that as a project to students. And the students were able to do that by the use of a membrane and a pump, something like a bicycle pump, right? And they were able to, say, make an object that costs about $300 US, right? And now they are actually contacting UN, World Health Organization on how to actually get sponsors for this and to bring them to some of the remote villages and places where, you know, clean water supply is not immediately available. Right? So we feel that this is actually a very meaningful sort of project, right? You use your engineering knowledge to really help the people who are in need, right? Not so much for profit, right? And we want to promote a lot of that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yes. I would like to have your comment on MIT declaration, such as this. MIT scientists, engineers, and managers believe that it's not enough merely to invent a new product, concept, or technology. The measure of success is global commercialization and widespread acceptance of their innovation. This mission of the MIT Entrepreneurship Center is to train and develop managers who will make high-tech venture successful. To that end, we offer educational programs to inspire, train, and coach new generation of entrepreneurs of all parts of MIT. Would you like to make a comment on this?
At MIT is actually a very good model. We have actually studied and looked at the MIT model extremely well. But some of the things is very hard to, I would say, follow, right? MIT is in a very fortunate position. It captures talents from all over the world. All over the world. Right? By virtue of their name, they are able to bring in the very best. Right? And once you put the very best people, they already have the environment for people to be innovative. Right? So, if you look at a place, be it Singapore or Bandung, right? Do you have access to the very best people in the world? The easy answer is no, we don't. Then how can we best make use of the situation that we have here? Right. But I think critical mass is important. I earlier mentioned Southeast Asia has 625 million people. There are many smart people amongst these 625. Can the universities in Southeast Asia, especially the top universities, be a key aggregator of the top people in Southeast Asia. Right. And our challenge is that our smart people will find that the conditions here are not most ideal for their development. So there is always the outflow of talents. But I think we can be ready for the inflow of talents. Right? Because Southeast Asia is really moving and developing very fast. There are going to be lots more potential in Southeast Asia than say in US or Europe. So we should be positioned for the inflow of talents. Now China has already seen that. For 30, 40 years, China has been losing their talents to Europe, to US and all this. But in the last 10 years, the top Chinese don't stay in US, they go back to China. And why China was able to grow so fast? Partly because of the inflow of talents. I think Southeast Asia should be ready for the inflow of talents back to Southeast Asia. And I feel that universities can play a very important role here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Let's give a big applause for the staff. Very inspiring and motivating speech today. I hope that next time we can meet him again in a very good environment. Okay. Thank you again. I give back the next sessions to the non-secretaries.
The question the question answer is ended, and also we say thank you so much to Professor Trihangun and also Professor Eng Chye for wonderful sharing. And the strength point is how we significantly doing an action in the facing in the future.
Wow, it was indeed a great speech from Professor Tan, all the way from the National University of Singapore. Two things to take home. It's not business as usual. Remember the quotes, the cliches he said, it's either up or out, or it's either to fail forward.